Mercury Trismegistus Book of The Wisdom of God, originally printed by Luca de Medici, son of Venetia, in Venice, May 15, 1481. Summary of Marsilio Ficino of Florence on the book of Hermes Trismegistus to Cosomo de Medici, father of the homeland. In the time when Moses was born, Atlas the astrologer flourished, the brother of Prometheus the physicist, and the maternal grandfather of the elder Mercury, whose grandson was Hermes Trismegistus. Augustine writes about him thus, as do Cicero and Lactantius. They assert that there were 5 Mercuries in succession, and that the 5th was the one called Trismegistus by the Greeks, who also say that he killed Argus, ruled over the Egyptians, and gave them laws and letters. He is said to have invented the characters of letters and the forms of animals and trees. He was held in such great veneration by men that he was included in the number of the gods. Numerous temples were built in honor of his divinity. His proper name was not allowed to be spoken commonly and recklessly due to a certain reverence. The first month of the year was named after him by the Egyptians. A city founded by him is still called in Greek the city of Mercury. He was also called Trismegistus the Great for a second time because he was the greatest philosopher, the greatest priest, and the greatest king. For among the Egyptians, as Plato writes, the priests were from the number of philosophers. From the group of priests they chose kings. Therefore, as he excelled all philosophers in sharpness and learning, he was constituted a priest, surpassing all priests in sanctity of life and worship of the divine, and finally attaining royal dignity. He overshadowed the glory of former kings by his administration of laws and deeds. So he was rightly called thrice great. He, first among philosophers, from physics and mathematics, turned to the contemplation of divine matters. He was the first to wisely discuss the majesty of God, the order of demons, and the transformations of souls. Thus he was called the first author of theology. Orpheus followed him, embracing the parts of ancient theology, initiated into the sacred rites of Orpheus and Aglaophimus. Aglaophimus was succeeded in theology by Pythagoras, and Philolaus, and our teacher, the divine Plato, followed his sect. Thus, a single sect of ancient theology, harmonious in all its parts, was formed from these 6 theologians in a wonderful order, taking its beginnings from Hermes and perfected by the divine Plato. Hermes wrote many books pertaining to the knowledge of divine matters, in which, O immortal God, how many secret mysteries, how many stupendous oracles are revealed. He speaks not only as a philosopher, but often as a prophet, and sings of future events. He predicted the ruin of the ancient religion. He foresaw the rise of a new faith, the advent of Christ. Here, he predicts the future judgment, the resurrection of the age, the glory of the blessed, the punishments of sinners. Hence it happened that Aurelius Augustine doubted whether he had foretold many things by the skill of the stars or by the revelation of demons. Lactantius, however, does not hesitate to count him among the sibyls and prophets. Indeed, of the many books of Mercury, 2 are particularly divine, one on the divine will, the other on the power and wisdom of God. The former is titled Asclepius, the latter Pymander. The former was translated into Latin by Apuleius the Platonist. The latter remained with the Greeks until these times. But recently, brought from Macedonia to Italy by the diligence of Leonardo of Pistoia, a learned and upright monk, it has reached us. And I, incited by your exhortations, decided to translate it from Greek into Latin, considering it fitting, Cosimo the Happy, to dedicate this work to your name. For as I myself have been abundantly enriched with resources and books through your aid, having devoted myself to Greek studies, it is appropriate for me to offer you the first fruits of the same studies. Nor would it be right to dedicate the work of so wise a philosopher, so pious a priest, so powerful a king, to anyone else, unless he excels in piety, wisdom, and power above all others. Therefore, as we descend to the writings of Mercury, the title of this book is Pymander, for it is disputed by 4 persons in this dialogue. The first parts to Pymander are attributed. He indeed published the book with Egyptian letters, and being skilled in the Greek language, by translating from Greek, he made common the mysteries of the Egyptians. The purpose of this work is to discuss the power and wisdom of God, since their operations are twin. The first remains in the very nature of God. The second extends to the extremes. And the former indeed conceives the first and eternal world, but the latter gives birth to the second world, temporal. He discusses very gravely about both operations and about both worlds. What is the power of God? What is wisdom? In what order is it conceived internally? In what progress do they appear externally? Furthermore, how do the things produced relate to each other? In what way do they agree? In what way do they differ? And finally, in what way do they regard their author? The order of the volume is that we distinguish into 14 books. And the first parts of the dialogue are given to Pymander, the second to Trismegistus, the third to Asclepius. The fourth place is held by Tatius thus: Hermes intends to instruct Asclepius and Tat in divine matters. One cannot teach divine things who has not learned, but with human ingenuity we cannot find things that are above nature. Therefore there is need of divine light, that we may guard itself by the light of the sun. But the divine light, the mind is never infused into the soul, unless it itself, like the moon to the sun, is completely converted to the mind of God. The soul is not converted to the mind, unless it is also the mind itself. But the mind is not formed before it has laid aside the deceptions of the senses and the mists of fantasy. For this reason, Mercury, having cast off the mists of the senses and fantasy, calls himself back to the approach of the mind. Soon Pymander, i.e. the divine mind, flows into him. From there, he contemplates the order of all things, both existing in God and emanating from God. Finally, he reveals to other men those things which are thus disclosed by divine power. This, therefore, is the title of the book, its purpose and order. But you, Cosomo the Fortunate, read happily, and may you live long, so that the homeland may live long as well. The book of Hermes Trismegistus on the power and wisdom of God, translated from Greek into Latin by Marsilio Ficino of Florence to Cosomo de' Medici, feather of the homeland Pymander, begins. When I was thinking about the nature of things and raising my mind's eye to the heavens, with the senses of my body now asleep, as often happens to those who are satiated or tired and burdened with sleep, suddenly I seemed to see someone of immense size who called me by name and thus shouted, "What is it, O Mercury, that you both want to hear and to see? What is it that you wish to discuss and understand?" Then I asked, "Who are you?" He replied, "I am Pymander, the mind of divine power. But see what you want. I will be present with you everywhere." I said, "I want to learn the nature of things and to know God." To this he replied, "Embrace me with your mind, and I will teach you all that you seek to understand." When he had said this, he changed form and immediately revealed all things. For I was seeing a certain immense spectacle, all things converged into one, exceedingly sweet and delightful, which wonderfully pleased me as I looked at it. Soon after, a certain horrid shadow with an oblique revolution slid downwards into the moist darkness nature wandered, then with an indescribable look was troubled. Then a certain smoke burst forth with a noise. From the noise a voice emerged, which I thought to be the voice of light. From this voice of light, a sacred word proceeded, and this stood by the moist nature and cherished it. And from the moist nature's entrails, pure and light fire quickly flew out. It sought the heights. The light air also, parent of spirit, occupied the middle region between fire and water. But earth and water so intermingled lay that the face of the earth was nowhere visible, being covered by the waters. These two then were moved by a spiritual word which was uttered over them, resounding in their ears. Then Pymander said, "Do you understand what this vision means?" "I will know," I said. Then Pymander said, "That light I am, your God mind, and the moist nature of the ancients, which has shone forth from the shadow. But the offspring of the mind, the word, is the Son of God, shining." "What then?" I said. He thus said, "Think that the word of the Lord sees and hears you. But the mind is the Father God, for they are not separate from each other. Their union is life." Trismegistus. I thank you, Pymander. Indeed, first meditate on the light, and know. Trismegistus. When these words were spoken, I prayed to him for a long time, that he would turn his idea towards me. When he had done this, suddenly I perceive in my mind a light existing with countless strengths, a fire adorned without end, seeing and encircling, and dominated by stability itself. These words of Pymander I understood, which astonished me with wonder. Thus he spoke again. "Have you seen in your mind the first form prevailing with infinite power?" "Such things I saw," Pymander said to me, and I said to him, "The elements of nature were born from the divine will, Pymander, by the will of God, which, when the word was completed and the beautiful world was formed beside it, adorned the rest of itself with its own elements and vital seeds. But the mind, or God, full of the fertility of both sexes, life and light, with its word and its own mind, perfects another craftsman, who is indeed the God of fire and spirit. Frequently he created governors who encompass the circles of the sensible world, and their arrangement is called fate. The divine idea joined the word of God from the elements in the lower regions, the pure artifice of nature united to the craftsman's mind. For it was consubstantial, and the elements of nature were left to fall downward without reason, so that it is like mere matter. Indeed, the mind, the craftsman, along with the word, containing the circles, and the others turning with eagerness, bent the machine to itself and desired it from the beginning to the end without end of command. For it begins where Horus ends, governing all the circuits as the mind itself wished. From the lower elements, it fitted together living beings, lacking reason. For it did not provide reason. Air brought forth the winged creatures, and water, the swimming ones. Water and earth are also distinct from each other, as it pleased the divine will. Then the earth later brought forth the living beings it had within it, quadrupeds, namely, serpents, wild animals, creatures of the field, both wild and domestic. But the Father of all, the intellect existing as life and light, he created a man similar to himself, and congratulated him as if he were his own son. Indeed, he was beautiful. He bore some likeness to himself. God, indeed, delighted in his own true form, allowed all his works to be visible to man. But man, considering the creation of all things in his own time, also wished to create. Hence, from the contemplation of the Father, he descended to the sphere of generation. And since he had power over all things, he observed the works of the seven governors. These, rejoicing in the contemplation of the human mind, each made man a participant in his own order. When he had learned their essence and perceived his own nature, he longed to penetrate and remain in the circle's ambit, and to comprehend the power of the governor presiding over fire. He who had truly had the free will and power over all, emerged and leaped into the mortal animals of the world, and those lacking reason through harmony, penetrating and dissolving the power of the circles. He showed the nature that flows downward, as the beautiful form of God, which when nature beheld, it was endowed with wondrous beauty, and possessed the orations of all seven governors, and the image of God himself. Smiling with great love, she reflected the image of human beauty in the water, and gazed upon the same with a certain admiration on the earth. He furthermore acquired a form similar to his own existing within himself. As in water, loved her, and desired to go with her. The effect immediately followed. By will and form, lacking reason, he begot her. Nature, embracing what was born by love, penetrated and mingled with it. When man alone among all terrestrial creatures was of a dual nature, mortal indeed because of the body, immortal, however, because of the essential man himself. Immortal indeed as he who holds the judgment of the connected ones, the rest of the living things which are mortal suffer subject to fate. Therefore, the superior harmony did not obstruct, but in harmony the fallen became endangered and was made a servant. He, fortified by the fertility of both sexes, by him who is the sense of trees and rivers, and made vigilant, by him who is vigilant, is contained and subjected to his domination. Trismegistus. After these things, the mind, said my reason, you are he. Then Pymander, this is the mystery, he said, which up to this day has hidden the human race. For nature, mixing herself with man, brought forth miracles, which surpassed all admiration of miracles. For when he had been imbued with the harmony of those seven, which I told you about a little earlier, by the Father and Spirit, nature itself did not resist. Indeed, the seven first begot men, the seven governors of natures, possessing both masculine and feminine forms, noble and sublime. But thus he bore it himself. O Pymander, with burning desire now I am affected, to hear further the remaining things. Therefore do not leave me here, I beg you. The rest he said to me. Pymander, be silent, be silent. I have completed the first discourse. Trismegistus, behold, now I am silent. Pymander, the generation of these seven, as I said, was made in this manner. For the female, consisting of air and water, combined with fire by maturation, took spirit from the ether, and nature conjoined the bodies to form the appearance of man. However, life and light did not proceed from it, if the soul and death proceeded. Indeed, life granted the soul, and light ultimately granted death. Such things indeed remained in the sensory members of the world, the beginnings and generations together until the end of the circuit. But listen to the rest, which you eagerly desired in discourse. When the circuit was completed, by the will of God, the knot was loosened. For all things of both kinds, animals, together with man, are dissolved. And the masculine indeed from part, the seeds were similarly made. Immediately God cried out with the word made. Multiply, grow, propagate all seeds in my works. Moreover, with your merits in the heavenly portion, recognize your own. And consider your immortal nature. Know that love is the cause of the body's decay. Learn the nature of all things. With these words, providence through fate and harmony blew together the mixture, and established generations. Hence all things were propagated according to their kind. Finally, he who recognized himself the good which is above essence achieved it. But he who embraced the body of love with error wandered in the darkness of the mind, perceiving evils with the senses. Nevertheless, what they commit, they say they are deprived of immortality because of this cause. Pymander, you seem, O Mercury, not enough understand what you hear. Trismegistus, and if you have already understood, I still understand and remember. Pymander, I am glad if you grasp what has been said. Trismegistus, please answer me, Pymander, why are those worthy of death who are silent in death? Pymander, because he proceeds, the sad shadow of his own body, from this which is the human nature. From this indeed the body is constituted in impure sensibility. From this finally death itself matured. Do you understand this, Mercury? You understand and why. He who knows himself passes into God, as the word of God declares. Trismegistus, since life and light, the father of sheep, from whom man is born. Pymander, you speak rightly. Light and life are God and Father, from whom man is born. Therefore, if you comprehend yourself composed of life and light, you will pass again to life and light. Trismegistus, Pymander said these things, but my mind still asks, in what manner has it ascended to life, please tell. Pi, God himself, the mind, ordered that man should notice himself. Trismegistus, therefore, men do not individually possess the mind. Pi, you speak rightly, Mercury. Therefore, I assist those who are good, pious, pure, religious, with my aid and so forth, that he may immediately recognize the care and avoid parts of sins and impurities. Thus they thrive, bless piously, and with solemn hymns praise, they attend to their body's death, satisfy its temptations, as one who is clear divides what pleases the sense, and those who flee dissensions find rest. And the body's dissensions do not impede their own end. Entrance is not given to foul temptations, which are usually closed off, continually extinguish all the sparks of desires. On the contrary, I dwell among the ignorant, the wicked, the lazy, the unjust judges, the impious murderers, leaving them to the judgment of the avenging demon who, inflicting the sharpness of fire, afflicts the senses, and more so, arms man to commit crimes, so that, being guilty of more disgraceful sins, he may be liable to more severe punishment. And he inflames him without any intermission to insatiable lusts. He fights with him in darkness, examines his sin, and wonderfully restrains and increases the onslaught of fire in his torment. Trismegistus, diligently you have explained everything to me, O mind, as I asked. But further answer this, what will happen after the accession? First, Pymander said, in the dissolution of the material body, the body falls into alteration. The form which it had before, insensible it dissolves into the future. The idle habit of behavior is surrendered to the demon, and it is sent away. The senses of the body, parts of the soul, flow back to their own sources, sometimes to be restored to their own acts again. The forces of anger and desire turn into nature lacking reason. Thus the remaining part then recurs through harmony to the higher realms. Then the first zone renders the duty of growing and decreasing equally. The second zone renders the machination of maliciousness and idle deceit. The third zone renders idle deception of desire. The fourth, dangerous and insatiable ambition. The fifth, profane arrogance and bold audacity. The sixth, harmful riches, corrupting and idle. The seventh zone, he established the lie. Then indeed the soul, stripped of the motions of harmony, returned to the desired nature, having its own property, and together with those who are there, praised the Father. They also, numbering themselves among the powers and becoming powers, enjoy God. And that is the highest good, to be able to know God. What is there besides this that pertains to you except that, having embraced everything, you will be a useful leader for those who are worthy of your care, so that the human race may attain divine salvation through your gift? Having said such things, Pymander, having restored himself to the divine powers, spoke thus. I, however, blessing and giving thanks to the universal parent, rose up now strengthened by him, and entirely led forth by the order of nature. A spectacle and most illustrious goal, hence I myself began to announce to men the beauty of piety and knowledge. O people, men of the earth, who have given yourselves over to drunkenness, sleep, and ignorance, live more soberly. Abstain from your excesses, you who have been lulled into rational sleep. But they, hearing, came together with me. Then I added again, why, O men of the earth, do you rush headlong into death, when you have no means to attain immortality? Recall yourselves now, you who labor under delusions, enveloped in the darkness of ignorance. Depart from obscure plague, learn immortality, flee corruption. Therefore, some mocked me before, but having been hurled to the path of death, they fell at my feet to instruct them. Therefore, lifting them up, I became the leader of the human race. Indeed, he showed them what things were to be for attaining salvation, and I poured out those words of wisdom from my lips. And so it happened that they emerged from the skin of drunkenness slowly with the advent of the evening and the rays of the setting sun, so that they might give thanks to God. After they had given thanks, each one returned to his own bed. But I inscribed the favor of Pymander on the penetrable parts of my soul and obtained all that I sought. I followed the joy of the body. The bond of sobriety freed the compression of the eyes. True sight, my silence, a second pregnancy, producing the offspring of good words. These things happened to me as I drank from the mind flowing from the divine word of Pymander. Therefore I, filled with divine spirit, became a vessel of truth. Therefore I give thanks to the Father God on behalf of all men. Holy God, the Father of all. Holy God, whose will is fulfilled by his own powers. Holy God, who is innocent with his familiars. Holy is he who established all things by his word. Holy are you, whose image is all nature. Holy are you, whom nature never created. Holy are you, more powerful than all power. Holy are you, greater than all excellence. Holy are you, better than all praise. Receive the worthy sacrifices made from my heart and soul flowing to you. Ineffable, dedicated only to you in silence, who declined contrary to true knowledge. Grant, strengthen me, and make the leaders of this flock those who wander in ignorance, in the knowledge of my brothers, but to you sons. With eternal faith to you I pledge. I bear witness of you. In life and light I rise. The Father himself is venerated, honor, but yours, he desires to possess happiness together with you, since you have granted him power and authority over all things. Mercury to Asclepius, universal discourse. God and divinity itself I speak then, not indeed you obviously, and with what ingenuity. So if it is divine, it is essence. But if God is also beyond essence, intelligible, however, in this manner, for God is intelligible, first not to himself, but to us. Indeed, the intelligible, understanding itself, advances through itself. Therefore, God is by no means intelligible to himself, not for something else indeed existing. Through that which he understands, he is understood by himself. However, it is different from us, and is therefore understood by us. But if the intelligible is the logos, it is not God. But if as God, not indeed, so that the logos might be called discrete word. However, everything that is moved is not in motion, but is moved in a certain stable manner. Also, what moves itself and remains, it is not moved with it simultaneously. Asclepius, since then, Trismegistus, those things which are in the world, change together with those that move them. For you said that the erratic spheres are moved by another plane sphere. Trismegistus, this is not motion, O Asclepius, but resistance, for they do not proceed in the same way, but in a contrary manner. However, opposition indeed contains the stable reverberation of motion. Repercussion of standing still is agitation, and therefore the erratic spheres and plainly running in turns alternately, in contrary meeting around opposition of such things, they are moved by that which they excel, are agitated, which indeed cannot be otherwise. For the poles themselves, which you know, neither rise ever, nor are immersed around the same perpetually recurring. Do you think they are not moved rather than are they able to stand still? Yes, to be moved, O Trismegistus, since they are recurrent. Do you think they are not moved rather than are they able to stand still? Asclepius. To be moved, O Trismegistus, since by the motion of Asclepius, by motion around the same forever not to be cared for. Trismegistus, but indeed that circulation the same, and around the same motion contained in station. For the same prohibits itself around what is above itself, and what is hindered, what is above that stands around the same. And so contrary agitation is firm, by the opposition itself perpetually stabilized. I will place examples before your eyes of those living on earth, as for example, when someone swims with the current of the water, the repulsion of the hands and feet at the same time makes a man stand, so that he is not washed away with the water, or submerged in it. Asclepius, you have brought a clear example to the middle, O Trismegistus. Therefore, whatever is moved in state is moved from the state. Thus, the motion of every animal, which consists of matter, is by no means from those things which are outside the world, but from internal to external, either from the soul or from the spirit, or from a certain incorporeal mind. For indeed a body moved by a soul moves not at all, neither the whole body at the same time. And if it exists inanimate, Asclepius. For what reason do you assert this, O Trismegistus? Trismegistus. Wood and stones and all other things, whatever has a soul is not moved by bodies, O Asclepius. For what moves within the body itself is inanimate. That body is certainly not what moves both, and its body which carries, and its own which is carried. Not all that which is said is animate by the chief reason that it moves. Do you not see then that the soul errs greatly when it alone supports two bodies? Moreover, it is clear that whatever is moved in something and by something at the same time. Asclepius, in that certainly it must be changed, which are changed, O Trismegistus. Trismegistus, you speak rightly, O Asclepius. Nothing is empty in the order of things, but only what is not, what is deprived of existence, must be called empty. For nothing can be found which exists and is empty. Asclepius, are not some things found empty, O Trismegistus, as an empty cask, an empty well, and many similar things? Trismegistus, alas, you wander far from the truth, O Asclepius. Those which are full and most full of all, you consider them empty. Asclepius, how is that, O Trismegistus? Trismegistus, air is perfectly a body. That body penetrates the rest, and running through fills all things. For such is the nature of the body, it is not composed of corporeal things. Therefore, those which you call empty are full of air. Thus those cavities ought rather to be called hollow than empty, for they also exist, and are full of air, and of spirit. Asclepius, this reasoning is invincible and certain, O Trismegistus. Air is a body. That body permeates the rest and inflows and fills all things. What moves without speaking, what shall we call it? Trismegistus incorporeal, O Asclepius. Asclepius, but what is the incorporeal? Trismegistus mind and reason embracing itself. Free from all bodily mass, alien to error, impassible, intangible, self-sustaining, purging and preserving all things, whose rays are goodness, truth, the principal light, and the primary image of form. Asclepius, what is God? Trismegistus, that which is none of these things, the hour of leisure in which they exist, the cause, certainly presiding over all and to each, allowing nothing not to be. Everything that is created from these things, but from nothing, nothing comes to be. For those things which are minimally are have no nature by which they might come into being. On the contrary, those which are have no nature by which they might at some time not exist. Asclepius, what then do you say about non-existence? Trismegistus God is not perfectly mind, but indeed to be mind. He is the cause, not spirit, but the cause, by which spirit exists. Not light, but the cause, by which light exists. Therefore, God must be worshipped by those two names, which belong solely to him. But none of the other names are fitting. For among those who are called gods or demons, or men, none can be as good as the one God. For he is goodness itself, nor is there anything else besides goodness. All other things are separated from the nature of goodness itself. Body and soul indeed have their place, and nothing can grasp goodness. So great indeed is goodness, by which the existence of all things, both corporeal and incorporeal, of all sensible things and all intelligible things, is good. That is God. Beware. Therefore, do not ever say that anything else is equal to the good, for indeed this would be an error. Nor should you say that God is something else, besides the good alone. Indeed, you would fall into the same mistake. Therefore, in speech, good is pronounced by all. However, what it is not understood by all, hence God is not known by all. Truly, because of ignorance, they call gods and also some men good. Now they can neither be nor become good. Therefore, the rest of the gods, all immortal, are honored by the name of God. But God does not follow goodness through honor, but through his very nature. For the nature of God is one and the same, namely the good itself. One is what is for both of us, whence all kinds flow. For the good extends to all things, nor does it receive any equal. God gives everything, receives nothing. Therefore, God is good, and good is God. The other name of God is Father because of this cause, that he generates all things. For the duty of a father is to generate. Therefore, this excellence is life and study, and it is itself with the wise, preferred and free. But the greatest calamity and impiety of all befalls those who die without children. For this reason, they are given punishments by the Lord after death. The ultimate punishment is this, that a barren soul migrates into some body by judgment, to which neither the nature of male nor female applies, what indeed is raised from the sun, and turned. Therefore, O Asclepius, with a man who has begotten no sons, have no association. His extreme misery of misfortune, however, you will know, as it afflicts him many times again and again. So many and such things have been said to you, O Asclepius, from which some knowledge of all nature is gathered. Mercury's sacred discourse, the glory of all, God, daily nature, the beginning of the universe, God, mind, nature, action, necessity, end, and renewal. For there was an infinite shadow in the abyss. Moreover, water and a thin intellectual spirit were present through divine power in the darkness. However, the holy splendor flourished, which under the sand and the humid nature led forth the elements. Therefore, everyone loved the seminal nature, and although they were indistinct, the light things afterward flew into a high region. The heavy things settled under the humid sand. With distinct and balanced matters, they were driven by a fiery spirit. The sky shone with 7 circles. The gods of the stars with their signs were observed. The stars were numbered according to those who inhabit them, the gods with a wider range in their course, with an airy circle, conspired, carried by the divine spirit. Each of the gods fulfilled their work from internal virtue. Thus, living beings were born, quadrupeds, reptiles, aquatic creatures together with flying ones. Also, every kind of planting flourished through seeds, grass, herb, and sprouts. They also contained the seed of regeneration internally, the generation of humans towards the knowledge of divine works, and the testimony of nature, to rule over all things covered by the sky, to discern the good, for the increase of the race, divinity of propagation. And every soul clothed in the shadow of flesh, towards the celestial discourse of the gods to be observed towards the works of God and nature's progress, towards good signs, towards the recognition of divine power. A certain portion is turbid towards the judgment of good and evil, and towards the discovery of various good arts. However, it begins to live in them, and to acquire wisdom, towards the portion that continually surrounds the gift of those encircling. Moreover, it is resolved in the same in which extensive monuments will stand, and admonitions of the skilled above the earth, chosen in the name of time of the generation of animated flesh, worn out by the fruits of the works of nature and art being renewed, finally through necessity and the renewal of the course, the circuit of the numerous nature. Certainly divine is the conspiracy of the whole world. Nature is renewed again by God, and in the very divinity nature is established. Mercury's crater or monet tetius. The craftsman created the entire world not with hands, but with a word. Indeed, think of him as acting through himself in everything, the unique God constituting all things by his will. For his body is not tangible, not visible, not of dimension, not of distance, nor like any other thing. For neither fire, nor water, nor air, nor spirit, indeed, all these things proceed from him. But good is thus, that where it belongs to itself alone, he also adorned the earth, wanted to adorn with a certain divine work. Thus he sent forth man, a mortal being, a mortal animal. And indeed the world is filled with animals bearing the intellect and reason of the world. For man was made a contemplator of divine work, so that he might admire what is perfect. He recognized its author. Indeed, the discourse about Trismegistus directs each man by divine power, but the mind is not entirely his. Not that he envied, for surely he judges. For envy does not come from him, but from those who dwell with the souls of men lacking a mind. Tatius. Why, O Father, did the God not communicate the mind to all? Trismegistus, because, O Son, he wanted to set it in the midst as a contest and a reward for the soul. Tatius, where did he place this? Trismegistus, when he had filled this open crater, he sent a herald ordering to announce certain things to the souls of men. Let her plunge herself into this bowl, whoever can, whoever indeed believes that the crater will return the soul to him who sent it forth. Whoever knows her end, for what reason she was born. Therefore, whoever heard the heralds, and plunged themselves into mine, they became participants in knowledge, and receiving the mind, they emerged as perfect men. But those who neglected the herald, these indeed were participants of the discourse, but devoid of the mind. They were left ignorant, and of the reason, and of by whom they were born. Furthermore, their senses, like the senses of irrational animals ensnared by anger and desire, knowing those things which are worthy, view, they do not admire it at all. For they believe that man is born for the sake of bodily desires, but those who are supported by divine matter, These, O Trismegistus, in terms of their works comparison, are considered immortal instead of mortal. Their intellect embraces all things which are on earth and which are in the sea, and if there is anything beyond those above the sky, and they raise themselves up to them, to contemplate the good itself. When they truly perceive this, the life we enjoy here, they consider a kind of misery. As for the species, all corporeal things are brought to one alone. Here, O Trismegistus, is the knowledge of the divine, if contemplation is the intelligence of God in the divine existing crater. Tatius, indeed, O Father, I desire to be washed in the liquid of this crater. Trismeg, unless, O son, you hate your body, you will not be able to love yourself. As soon as you love not yourself, but God himself, following the mind immediately. Finally acquiring this knowledge, you will attain it in due course. Tatius, how do you assert this, O Father? Trismeg. It is impossible, O son, to be involved in both at the same time, namely, mortal and divine. For since only two things are found in the order of things, corporeal and incorporeal, and the former indeed mortal, the latter is called divine. By the choice of one, we lose the other. Whenever the care of one is relaxed, the action of the other is intensified. Therefore, the better choice, choosing the noble way, a man chooses God and is rendered. And with true piety also demonstrates towards God to others. But the choice of the worse indeed destroys the man himself. But against God, it sins nothing but that one thing. Thus those who pass through the midst of pomp, themselves indeed without any action, either hindering others. Not otherwise do these wander like beggars, and wander because of the pleasures of the body. Since these things are thus, O Trismegistus, divine duties should precede, human ones should follow. God indeed is beyond fault. The cause of evils comes from us, for we put evils before goods. You see, O son, that we ought to transcend the celestial bodies, and that we should be absent from the choirs of demons, and surpass the progressions of the stars, so that we may tend to the one and only God. For the supreme good is insurmountable, without end infinite, beginning to itself now, concerning human knowledge, having a principle. Yet such knowledge is not its beginning, but it shows us the principle of knowing itself. Therefore, we embrace the principle. For having known this, we quickly run through the universe. However, it is difficult to leave the accustomed and the provided, to turn oneself to higher and better things. For those we see with our eyes delight us too much. They bring about secret distrust. However, evident evils are truly. The hidden good is for those who insist on the manifest. For indeed it has no form, nor figure. For this reason it is only similar to itself. But unlike the others, indeed incorporeal cannot appear to the body. Of such a kind it is similar differing to the dissimilar and similar to that which is similar. Posterity of the monad, unity of all, the principle, root, and origin, but from that very principle, nothing. The beginning, however, is not of the principle but of another. Therefore, the monad contains all principles and numbers. Begun by none, it generates all numbers from no number. Whatever is generated is imperfect, divided, growing, and decreasing. But what is perfect, nothing happens to these. That which increases by the virtue of the monad. However, it vanishes due to its own weakness, since it cannot grasp the monad further. These words, O Trismegistus, are an image of the divine, which if you consider carefully and with your inner eyes look upon them, believe me, my son, you will find the ascent to the heights. Moreover, the image itself will lead you, for it has a certain power in its nature for those who burn with the desire to contemplate it. It grasps and draws them, just as the stone called the magnet draws iron. Mercury to his son Trismegistus, that God is both hidden and manifest. Now furthermore, I convey this discourse to you, O Trismegistus, so that you do not lack the principal name, nor ignore that which to many seems hidden but is evident. For if it is nowhere manifest, it will indeed be nothing, whatever offers itself to sight invisible, which is hidden in one, eternal, for it is not necessary that it should appear, since it never ceases to exist. Indeed, it places the rest before the eyes, but it remains secret, so that partaking in what is united, they enjoy the eternal. For fantasy alone revolves around things which are generated, in which nothing exists beyond generation. But that one thing is ungenerated, incomprehensible to fantasy. But when everything becomes clear through it, it shines again through all things and in all things. And it appears especially to those to whom it wanted to communicate knowledge. Therefore you, my son Trismegistus, first and foremost pray devoutly to the Lord. the unique Father, one, and from whom one, so that you may be worthy of his mercy. Thus at last you will be able to perceive God, if only one single ray of his intelligence kindly shines upon you. For only the hidden intellect perceives hidden things. And so if you look with the eyes of the mind, O Trismegistus, believe me, it will become clear. God indeed, free from all envy, shines everywhere through the individual parts of the world and makes himself known so much that it is not only possible to understand, but also, so to speak, to touch with hands. For everywhere his abundance is manifested to our eyes, often presenting and inculcating his image. If you praise him himself, how do you help yourself or him? Finally, when you want to see God, look at the order of the stars and the rest of the heavenly bodies. Who then maintains this perpetual order? Indeed, the order of every number is limited by boundaries. The sun, the God of gods of the heavenly, the most excellent. The rest of the heavenly bodies obey the sun as if it were a royal ruler. The sun is so great. It is larger than both the earth and the sea, yet it allows countless stars to revolve above it. Whom does it fear? Whom does it revere, O sun? There are the motions of different stars. Who assigns the measure of motion to each? Tatius. The sphere perpetually turning itself around the same center, drawing the entire machine of the world. Trismegistus, who uses this instrument, who bounds the sea within its limits, who balances the weight of the earth and holds it in the middle. Surely there is someone, O Trismegistus, the author and lord of these things. Indeed, to preserve place, number, or measure without the power of the author is impossible. Order cannot come from disorder. Disorder, however, needs a lord to provide order. Would that he would give you, O sun, the ability to fly with the aid of wings into the high regions of the air, and having obtained the middle region between heaven and earth, you would see the things of the earth indeed in their solidity, the diffusion of the sea, the flow of rivers, the vastness of the air, the activities of the heavens. O most fortunate sun, a vision of a most blessed spectacle. If indeed by the motion of one of the luminaries you would understand the whole series of the world, and the immobile maker, you will see the hidden one also clearly, that it is even through those things which are borne by the earth as fragile, and hidden in the depth of the water you would wish to investigate the divine. Artisan, come, O sun, look around at the opposition of the human body, by its warning learn, how beautiful is the creator of the image, who is the painter of the eyes, who shaped the nostrils and ears, who stretched and bound the lips of the mouth, who stretched the nerves and tied them, who irrigated the veins, who assembled the solid bones, who covered the flesh with a thin skin, who separated the fingers and joints, who extended the foundations of the feet, who perforated the pores and opened the passages, who shaped and compressed the spleen, who impressed the pyramidal shape on the heart, who further arranged the fibers of the liver, who sculpted the vessels of the lungs, who gave the belly its ample capacity, who shaped the honorable members of the body in the open, who hid the obscene parts in darkness, and wished them to lie hidden from the sight of onlookers. See how many works of divine art are shown in one material, each one beautiful, correctly measured, and differing in the proper functions of the young. Who fashioned each? Who is the mother? Who is the father? Surely these things were formed by the invisible God alone, by his own will. And while no one would dare to assert that a statue or image could be made without a craftsman painter, shall we think that the marvelous constitution of this world was made without a creator? O blind little man, O too impious, O one covered in the deep darkness of ignorance. Beware, beware, I say, O my son Trismegistus, lest you ever separate the craftsmanship from the craftsman. Nay, indeed, having called upon God by his proper name, consider him to be its father. And if you compel me to seek something more audacious, let it be considered his opinion, to begin and to make each thing, just as nothing can be made without a maker. Thus, it is impossible for God to have existed unless he always acts on all things. Indeed, in heaven and earth, the sea, in the whole world, in every particle of the world, both in that which is and in that which is not. There is nothing in all nature that he himself is not. He is indeed. Those things that are those things, and those things that are not. Those things which are, he has brought into light. Those that are not, he has hidden in himself. This God is better in name. This one hidden. This one again most powerful. This one visible to the mind. This one present to the eyes. This one incorporeal. This one, as I may say, multicorporeal. For there is nothing in bodies that he himself is not. For he alone exists in all things. Moreover, he has all names, because he is one Father. He also has no name, because he is the Father of all. What then will praise you? Above you? From below you? Where shall I turn my eyes, that I may praise you? Above? or below, within, or outside? Is there a measure, or a place around you, or anything else among all things? In you, however, are all things, from all things, beyond all things. Nothing indeed he takes. All things you indeed have. But what do you not have? That very nothing. When then shall I praise you, Father? We cannot grasp your time and moment. By what means shall I praise your most excellent praises? Whether by these things, which you have created, or rather by those which you have not created? Whether perhaps by these which you have brought to light from darkness, or by those which still lie hidden in the secret bosom? Through what then shall I dedicate hymns to your name? Shall I exist in such praise as my own master, or rather become another? Indeed you are. Whatever I am, you are. Whatever I do, you are. Whatever I finally say. For you are all things, and nothing exists besides you. Indeed, what are you not yourself? You are whatever is begotten. You are indeed the intelligent Father, the creating God, producing good, making all good things. For indeed matter is the purest air, the soul of the air, the soul's mind, and the God of the mind. That in God alone is goodness and nowhere else. To Asclepius. O Asclepius, goodness is found in nothing except the one God. Indeed, God himself is goodness always. Therefore, it is fitting that God is the essence of all motion and cognition. This essence is deprived of nothing, stable around itself, needing nothing, infinite, possessing abundant fullness. This one principle of the universe, extending and pouring out goodness whenever I name it. Goodness is that which is all good things, and understand that what is good is present in this alone and not in any unworthy one, so that by pursuing it one does not become evil. Nor does the loss of any such thing, even if it falls, cause pain after the damage. Neither greater nor lesser evil exists, nor is there anything stronger from which it can be conquered. Hence no injury can occur, which, being irritated or provoked, it accomplishes. Nothing indeed escapes perpetually, for which it certainly has reason to be indignant and angry. Nor does it endure what is cast towards it by emulation, so that when these things happen to them, nothing of nature besides the good itself remains. As it indeed needs nothing, what are evils? If these are in the essence, so in nothing else is good found. For in individuals, other things are found individually, both in small things and in great things, as also in these, which are according to the one. And in the greatest and most powerful animal of all, which indeed is filled with passions. For generation is a certain passion where however there is passion, in no way is there good. Where there is good, no passion is found at all. Where there is day, in no way night. Where night, nor even day, therefore in generation good cannot be. It remains therefore in that which is begotten, as indeed to matter is granted, the participation of all things. Thus also by participation the good, the world is good. I say good, in which it even accomplishes all things. In this respect, indeed the world is good. In all other things, not good. It is passible, he says, and mobile, and moreover the cause of all passions. In this very thing, the comparison of evil to good. For indeed that which is not exceedingly evil, and which is less evil, we call good among men. Hence it happens that the good of things is nothing else than the smallest portion of evil. Whence it follows that this kind of good cannot be separated from evil. Ignorant is he who thinks good is without mixture of evils. By intellect, however, further good does not remain. If it does not remain, all evil becomes. Therefore, in God alone does good itself exist. Why just the name of good, O Asclepius, if the nature of good is nowhere? It is well known that this head can be a material body made up and weighed down by wickedness, labors, pains, desires, anger, deceptions, false opinions, and trifles. Yet of the earth, nonetheless, it is said, O Asclepius, that each of these things which I have mentioned is considered the highest good. First and foremost, evil must be avoided, such as the sad luxury, the source of all evils. Hence the error, hence the deprivation of good. Indeed, I owe great thanks to God. What thoughts of the nature of good I have had. This certain conviction has been instilled in me that good cannot exist in the world. Indeed, the world is congested with evils. God, however, is good, or the good itself, a richness of overflowing fullness. The transcendence indeed shines around the essence of good, bright and pure. And perhaps they are not the essences of God. It must be heard, I assert, O Asclepius, the essence of God. If God has any essence, it is the good itself. It is not permitted to find the beautiful and good in the world or in parts of the world. For whatever stirs the senses are idols and certain vain marvels. Those which elude the sensory organs lead to the beautiful and good itself. Just as the eye's sharpness, while it does not see, likewise does not recognize the beautiful and good. These, therefore, are parts. Go there, ye siblings of that family, he who is comparable, the beloved prince, so that they themselves love them. Is it permissible from these to the God himself? It is loved. If you can perceive God, you will also perceive the beautiful and the good, shining brightly for all, illuminated by God. Beauty without comparison. If it changes not, it is good. God admits no comparison or change. Thus, how you know God as beautiful and good? So surely among the eternal living, though God cannot be seen by them, one must communicate. If you seek God, seek him in beauty, which ultimately leads to him. The only way is piety connected to knowledge. Therefore, ignorant mortals, straying from the path of piety, dare also to call man good. When they can have no true notion of good, but entangled in evils and firmly caught, he ceases to be good and uses evils insensibly, and should fear their loss and deceit. Finally, with all devices and cities they contend, lest they be pressed by a single evil alone, but indeed let the evils in their magnitude increase. Such are, O Asclepius, the ornaments and goods of man, which neither can we flee nor hate. Most difficult it exists for that chief reason, because we must use them and live with them, without which we cannot live a life. The greatest evil for men is to ignore God. You drunken mortals rush who ignore me. If you find it unbearable, vomit it out, live soberly, look with the eyes of your mind. If you cannot all do this, at least let those who can do it. Ignorance overturns the entire earth and tears apart the soul imprisoned in the body's chains. It never allows it to recover, nor does it allow you to be immersed in the swamp of corruption and death. Breathe, yes, breathe again. Return to the fountain of life. Seize that which leads you to the gateway of truth. There, the bright light mingles with no darkness. There, no one raves in drunkenness, but all watch soberly, and with the eyes of the mind, they behold him who wishes to be seen. He is perceived neither by the ears nor seen by the eyes, nor is he described in words. The mind alone sees him. The mind alone speaks of him. But primarily it is necessary to wear what you carry about you, truly. The garment of deceit, the foundation of depravity, a breeding ground for corruption, a dim, deathly husk, a whirling tomb. Thus finally I fear. He who flatters hates. He who hates sees. Such is the kind by which you are surrounded, an enemy's noose. Approach the very essence of God, lest you are snatched away, lest you see the beauty of truth and the nearby good through the prism of this hateful depravity, nor fall into its traps, which it ceaselessly contrives against you. Sometimes you know them. This dulls the inner sense of the senses and blunts them. The thick material suffocates, intoxicated by an abominable and tedious pleasure. Do not listen to what should not be heard, nor look upon what should not be seen. What is right and ought to be heard and seen first. Nothing of those things that are destruction, but rather transformations. Deceived men call it destruction, adaptive. Concerning the soul and body, O son, it must be said how the soul is immortal and what its power of action is in the formation and dissolution of the body. Death has no relevance to these. For Thanatos, indeed, death began as a mortal appellation, either as a single thing or by the removal of the first letter. Thanatos, i.e. death, stands for what is called Thanatos, i.e. immortal. Thanatos also means again, yet nothing of those things that are in the world perishes. If indeed the world is a second God, and also a living immortality, it is impossible for any part of the living immortals to perish. Whatever is within the world, they are mute limbs, especially man, the rational animal. First of all, truly everlastingly eternal, the unborn God, the author of all. Secondly, then, in his image, fashioned by him, and nurtured by the same, nurtured, and if endowed with mortality, like from its own before living what is hidden, and immortal, and if thus nurtured from what is hidden and immortal, and not hidden living, and breathes again, they differ in this alone, because the everlasting was not made by another. But if otherwise, it happened by itself, not made by anyone, because it is always everlasting, for it is fourfold everlasting. All is eternal, but the Father himself is eternal. But indeed the world, always living from the Father and made immortal. And as much as matter had been subjected, the Father himself, acting corporeally and gathering into mass, made it all spherical. He especially granted the qualities of matter to the existing immortal and to the reasoning of matter having the eternal. And by sending the complete ideas to the sphere like a circle, he encompassed every quality. Moreover, he wanted to adorn that which is after himself. If indeed it was supported by corporeal immortality, less matter, wishing to depart from this assembly, would again resolve into its deformity. Since it was neither incorporeal, O son, the material was more deformed. Here, this same material, also having certain qualities of smallness, rolled back as it grew equally and decreased by nature, which men call death. Such confusion is around earthly living things. The heavenly bodies indeed preserve one and the same order, which in fact first received their fate from their Father. They themselves are kept by the restoration of each one, indissoluble. The restoration again of the constitution of the earthly body, this same dissolution into dissoluble bodies, and it will restore the immortal, and thus sense deprivation occurs, not the destruction of bodies. The third animal, man, also born to the image of the world according to the will of the Father. Besides other earthly living beings, not only has kinship with the second God, but also with the intelligence of the first. Clearly following the God perfectly, the bodily sense comprehends you. But first, it rises with the mind to understand the incorporeal and good mind. Tatius, therefore, does this animal not destroy. Trismegistus, O son, better and better to foretell, and moreover meditate on what God is, what the world is, what an immortal animal is, what a dissoluble animal is. Know also, the world is from God together and in God, but man exists from the world and in the world. The principle and comprehension of all things and the constitution of God is that in God alone is beauty and goodness. Elsewhere there is nothing. To Asclepius. Yesterday, O Asclepius, I delivered a perfect oration. However, at present I think it necessary that we briefly discuss about sense. Sense and motion seem especially to differ in this, that one is according to matter, the other, however, is according to essence. However, it seems to me that both agree, nor are they distinguished in humans by reason. In all living beings, sense is now united, but in humans, it is intelligence. From intelligence, indeed, intellect differs, just as from divinity, God differs. Divinity is from God. Intelligence, however, comes from man. This is a sister speech, or each is an instrument for each other. For neither speech is pronounced without intellect, nor intellect comes to light without speech. Therefore, sense and intelligence in man, as if connected, conspire together with each other. For neither can we understand without sense, nor can we in any way perceive without intellect. Nevertheless, it is possible to understand intellect without sense, like a horse, who in dreams sees phantasms. Yet both of those operations appear externally in visions, but the sense is awakened from sleep into wakefulness. Moreover, the body and the soul are united in man. Whenever the parts of each sense agree with each other, then intellect begins to be arranged in the mind. The mind comprehends all notions, good indeed, whenever it is infused by God, but contrary ones, when certain demons cast their seeds. No part of the world is indeed devoid of the presence of demons. Their light wholly descends from God himself. Finally, indeed, it is transferred into man, and the seeds of his own speech are scattered. But the mind, sprinkled with seeds, is pregnant from them and gives birth to adulteries, debaucheries, homicides, parricides, sacrileges, contempt of divine things, murders, destructions of cities, plagues of men, and all other works of evil which are the works of demons. The seeds of God are few indeed, but they are great, beautiful and good, virtue, temperance, piety, and the knowledge of God. The one who recognizes God, refreshed with all good things, attains divine notions. Indeed, these notions are not like those of many. For this reason, if anyone dedicates themselves to this knowledge, neither do they please the common people, nor do the common people please them. Ultimately, they are considered insane and laughed at. They bring back. Sometimes they are even hated, subjected to insults and deprived of life. For we have said that wickedness dwells here, and its domain is the earth. I speak of the earth, not the entire world, as the impious indeed claim, but nevertheless, a man devoted to God, who has first tasted divine vision, consigns all other things to oblivion, and also what is bad for other men comes to him as good, advising wisely, and referring everything to knowledge, and which is astonishing, always turning evils completely into good. But now let us return again to the discourse on sense. It is human to unite sense with intellect, for all men, as we have said above, enjoy intellect, but one according to matter, another according to essence. For he who is the servant of depravity is material. He also receives the seed of understanding from demons, as we said. But if there are any whose souls are of goodness, their nature itself uses them. For God is the author of all things, producing all things, and returns them similar to himself. Yet these innate goods are sterile in the use of operation, and the revolution of the world agitating generations. Qualities indeed. Certain of evils indeed. Certain defects. You purge the good. O Asclepius, the world possesses sense and motion not similar to human sense and motion, but indeed stronger and in a higher manner. For sense and intellect are truly one. All sacred and festive things resolve. These especially of divine pleasure constructed with reason, so that it receives all seeds from God, and storing them safely in its bosom. It produces everything by composing, and again takes away everything by dividing, and like a skilled farmer. Whatever is overgrown, he prunes, so that at the appointed times and intervals, it may grow again. Nor is there anything to which the world itself does not provide life. And at the same time, it is the place of life, and it is also the creator. But bodies are made of matter in different consistencies. Some of these are from earth, some from water, others from air, others from fire, and indeed, many things composed from all these. Some things are more dense, others are simpler. Those are heavy, these are light. But the speed of motion induces a variety of qualities in generation. Respiration indeed supplies generation with both quality and an abundance of life. Therefore, God is the father of the cosmos, i.e., the father of the world. But the cosmos is those things which are in the cosmos, and indeed the cosmos is the Son of God. And those things which are in the cosmos are subject to the dominion of the cosmos, and it is rightfully called the cosmos. For it adorns all things with a variety of generation, i.e., it adorns. And indeed with the unceasing operation of life of perpetual necessity, with the speed of the elements, with mixture, with order and generation. Therefore, the cosmos itself is adorned with necessity and at the same time deservedly named by the sense and intellect of all who stand by. Those things which flow from externals from it, which is both continuous and inspired. And indeed, the cosmos preserves forever whatever it has received from God from the very beginning. Indeed, God, not as some it seems, he felt, and his mind was seized. The miserable ones indeed perish if they mistakenly speak, whatever things there are, O Asclepius. In God simultaneously, and depending on God, partly acting through the body, partly moving through animal essence, some by animating spirit. Others indeed are receptacles of the dead. But more correctly, we will say that God does not have such things, but to express the clear truth, we will confess that he himself is all things. Nor does he grasp those things from the extremes, yet extending to the extremes nonetheless. That is the sense and intellect of God. Hence, there will never be a time in which any existence vanishes into nothingness. But whenever I speak of the existence of God, I speak of treasure. For existence itself embraces God. Beyond this nothing exists. Beyond him nothing himself. These things to you, O Asclepius, will seem true to the understanding, but to the ignorant, incredible. To understand is indeed to believe, but not to believe is undoubtedly to ignore. For my speech has indeed run up to the truth, and the mind too, from speech brought to a certain something, reached truth, finally comprehending all things, and finding them consistent with those which he interpreted and believed in the trace, and rested happily in that very faith of the decorum. Therefore the things that are said about the divine, the understood indeed believe, the not understood deny. These things spoken from understanding support. Mercury Trismegistus' key to Tatius. Yesterday, O Asclepius, I wrote this discourse to you. Hence equally dedicated to Tatius from today, and more diligently studied, on which the present discourse sums up all the previous things mentioned by us to him, because it will be a certain ultimate summation. O Tatius, God and Father and good have the same nature, indeed the same action. For that is a term of increase and diminution, which concern the mutable and immutable human and divine things, each of which he wants to be, but elsewhere as action, as we have demonstrated in other things, of divine and human, which indeed must be understood in this. This act is the will of God. His essence is to will all things to subsist. What is God and Father and good, if not the very existence of all these beings? Indeed, the existence of these things while they are, that is God, that is Father, that is good, to which nothing else is applied from all things. For the world and the son of those things, which are according to participation, is the Father, yet not for those using life and goodness as a cause. But if this is so, it is comprehended by the will of goodness, without which it can neither ever exist nor be made, being both the Father of sons, both through creation and also of nourishment. through the sole desire of receiving good. For good is active, it meets the other, which it cannot. When it receives nothing, it wants to be all things. I do not say, O Tatius, it makes all things, for doing for a long time. It is deficient and unworthy. For indeed, sometimes it acts, sometimes it ceases, deficient indeed in kind and quality, both in quantity and quality. And sometimes what and how much it arranges, sometimes contrary to these things. But God and Father and good are by the fact that they are all things. Therefore, it can indeed prescribe itself to itself, for it wills to be this, and it is. And indeed, it is most truly itself, for all other things are on account of it. For it is the nature of good, O Tatius, to make itself known. This is good, O Tatius Trismegistus. The Father of good and beautiful vision has made us participants. Hence the eye of my mind is now purified by vision. Tris, indeed, not as the sun's ray with excessive brightness, blinds the eyes and makes them dim. So is the vision of good. For it illuminates and increases the light in the eyes the more, as one is able to receive more by the influx of intelligible splendor. The divine light is swifter and sharper and penetrating, and filling all with innocence and immortality. Those who can draw more abundantly from this brightness from the body, O Bodrum, often from the body to the most beautiful sight, just as Celius and Saturn, our most penetrating, rise. Trismegistus. Would that we also, Father. Tris, would that, O Son. However, up to now we are duller in perception. But then we will be able to raise the eyes of the mind and see the incomprehensible beauty of good, when we have said nothing at all about it. And indeed, the knowledge of it is divine silence, and meanwhile the application of all things. He who understands this can think of nothing else. He who deserves this can see nothing else but it. He who hears this can hear nothing after it, nor move the limbs of his body in himself. Indeed, the universal least from the senses and motions of the body acts fearlessly. For he who circles all around illuminates the whole with his mind, abstracts the soul entirely from the body, finally transfigures it entirely into the essence of God. It is impossible, O Son, for the soul of man, lying in the filth of the body, to assume a divine form, nor is it allowed to behold the beauty of God unless one has first been reformed into God. Trismegistus. In what manner do you say this, O Father? Trismegistus. The distribution of every soul, O Son. Trismegistus. But how are mutations distributed in their journey? Trismegistus. Did you hear in those things which we said about generation, how from the one soul of the whole world, all souls flow through the whole world as if distributed running around? However, the mutations of these souls are indeed many, some for the better and more fortunate, but some on the contrary. For certain reptiles are transformed into eagles, aquatic souls migrate into terrestrial beings climb into flying creatures, and aerial beings turn into men. Then immortal souls of men are transferred into demons. Finally, they happily revolve into gods. The choirs of the twin gods, one wandering, the other not wandering. And this is the supreme glory of the soul. But the soul that has fallen into the human body, if it indeed persists in evil, does not taste any immortality, nor does it even enjoy the good. However, turning back on its journey, it is cast down into reptiles. This is indeed the adjudication of punishment for an evil soul. The depravity of the soul, ignorance, and release from the senses and motions of the body, acts fearlessly. For he who circles all around illuminates the whole with his mind, abstracts the soul entirely from the body, finally transfigures it entirely into the essence of God. It is impossible, O Son, for the soul of man, lying in the filth of the body, to assume a divine form, nor is it allowed to behold the beauty of God unless one has first been reformed into God. Trismegistus. In what manner do you say this, O Father? Trismegistus. The distribution of every soul, O Son. Trismegistus. But how are mutations distributed in their journey? Trismegistus. Did you hear in those things which we said about generation, how from the one soul of the whole world, all souls flow through the whole world as if distributed running around? However, the mutations of these souls are indeed many, some for the better and more fortunate, but some on the contrary. For certain reptiles are transformed into eagles, aquatic souls migrate into terrestrial beings climb into flying creatures, and aerial beings turn into men. Then immortal souls of men are transferred into demons. Finally, they happily revolve into gods. The choirs of the twin gods, one wandering, the other not wandering. And this is the supreme glory of the soul. But the soul that has fallen into the human body, if it indeed persists in evil, does not taste any immortality, nor does it even enjoy the good. However, turning back on its journey, it is cast down into reptiles. This is indeed the adjudication of punishment for an evil soul. The depravity of the soul, ignorance, and release from the senses and motions of the body, acts fearlessly, for he who circles all around, illuminates the whole with his mind, abstracts the soul entirely from the body, finally transfigures it entirely into the essence of God. It is impossible, O son, for the soul of man, lying in the filth of the body, to assume a divine form, nor is it allowed to behold the beauty of God unless one has first been reformed into God. Trismegistus, in what manner do you say this, O Father? Trismegistus, the distribution of every soul, O Son. Trismegistus, but how are mutations distributed in their journey? Trismegistus, did you hear in those things which we said about generation, how from the one soul of the whole world, all souls flow through the whole world as if distributed running around? However, the mutations of these souls are indeed many, some for the better and more fortunate, but some on the contrary. For certain reptiles are transformed into eagles, aquatic souls migrate into terrestrial beings, terrestrial beings climb into flying creatures, and aerial beings turn into men. Then immortal souls of men are transferred into demons. Finally, they happily revolve into gods. The choirs of the twin gods, one wandering, the other not wandering. And this is the supreme glory of the soul. But the soul that has fallen into the human body, if it indeed persists in evil, does not taste any immortality, nor does it even enjoy the good. However, turning back on its journey, it is cast down into reptiles. This is indeed the adjudication of punishment for an evil soul. The depravity of the soul, ignorance, and consisting in generation and generated of all qualities and quantities. Indeed, it is mobile, but every material motion must be called generation. And the intelligible status in this way affects material motion. Since the world is a sphere, it encompasses, nor is there anything material above the head. Certain things neither in any other way beneath the feet are intelligible, and all material things. But the mind is agitated in a circle in the head, that is according to the nature of the motion of the head. Therefore, whatever unions there are of that head's coverings, which truly is the soul, are born immortal. As if a body is constituted in the soul, and having a soul, they are full of body. But whatever from the covering is far away in which they are, which more participate in the soul, a body exists. Indeed, the whole is an animal. Therefore, the world is composed of a certain material and intelligible. The world is the first animal, man is second, after the world the animal. However, the first of the remaining animals, whatever task is granted to other souls, man also possesses. And not only is he not good, but also evil, as he is considered mortal. For the world is not good, because it is mobile, yet not evil, because it is immortal. But man, both because he is mobile and because he is mortal, is considered evil. The soul of man is carried in this manner: mind and reason, reason and soul, soul and spirit, spirit and body. The spirit diffused through veins and arteries and blood, animates everywhere, and sustains the weight of the body suspended, and carries it around. Hence some have been deceived. They thought that the soul was moisture of the blood. We were completely mistaken. For firstly, the spirit must remain with the soul, then it must coalesce into the blood, and the veins and arteries cause it to extend. Finally, the animal resolves, and this is the death of the body. But everything depends on one principle from one and the same. And indeed, the principle moves, so that the principle exists again. However, it remains one, and does not depart from unity. Therefore, these three are God the good Father, and the world, and man. God holds the world holds man. The world is the Son of God, man is the offspring of the world. Nor indeed does God ignore man, but he cares for him, and wants to be known by him. This is the only salvation for man, the knowledge of God. This is the ascent to Olympus. From this one source, the soul is good, and sometimes not indeed good, but otherwise evil. But according to necessity, Trismegistus. How do you assert this, my Trismegistus? Trismegistus, I say this. The soul of the boy contemplates itself. By its nature, it has departed from the body, for the body is not completely compacted, and sees itself beautiful in all directions. For it is not yet corrupted by the passions of the body, then the soul of the whole world depends. But when the body is compacted, and the soul is disjoined from its mass and distracted, then it is subjected to oblivion, and deprived of the vision of the beautiful and the good. But oblivion itself is wickedness, and the same thing happens to those who go out of the body. For the soul returns into itself, the spirit contracts into the blood, the soul into the spirit. The mind, being free from coverings and divine by its own nature, has received a fiery body. It roams through all places, and it has left the soul by a just judgment and deserved punishment. Trismegistus. How do you say this, O Father? Trismegistus. Indeed, the mind is separated from the soul from the spirit. The garment of the mind is the soul. The garment of the soul is the spirit. Therefore it happens, O son, that the listener is with the speaker, and conspire, and hearing becomes sharper with the voice of the one speaking here. O son, the convolution of these in your bodies is accomplished. Indeed, it is utterly impossible for the mind, naked according to itself, to be set in the earthy mass. For it is not possible for an earthy sex to receive a mind so divine, nor to sustain such a number in a body confirmed by suffering. Therefore, the mind has assumed the soul as a garment, and the divine soul uses the vehicle of the spirit. The spirit runs through the entire animal. Therefore, when the mind is first released from the earthly body, it immediately takes on its fiery garment and abandons the body, by which, certainly, as long as it is covered, the earthy body cannot swell. For the earth does not sustain fire. Indeed, the whole would be burned by a small spark. For this reason, moisture surrounds the earthy mass, as if some obstacle to the combustion of fire, which, since it is the sharpest and swiftest of all divine concepts, comprehends the bodies of each element. For indeed, the very heaven and artificer especially use fire for their own employs in its workmanship. Indeed, the artisan of the whole uses everything. A craftsman, however, uses those things which are around the earth. For the human mind is deprived of fire. It is suitable only for human disposition. It cannot construct divine things. Certainly the human soul, not all indeed, except the pious and blessed ones, divine. But after such a soul is freed from the prison of the body by death, when it has undergone all the commands of virtue and piety, surely it becomes either like the mind or like a god. However, the struggle of religion and piety is this: to recognize God, to harm no one. The impious soul, however, remains in its own nature and tortures itself excessively, seeking a body to enter, earthly and human. Another body like a human, the human soul does not enter, nor is it right for the rational soul to enter the body of an irrational creature. For the divine law prohibits such a nefarious generation. Trismegistus. In what way, then, is such a soul tormented, O Father? And what is the graver punishment of this soul? Trismegistus. Impiety, O my son Trismegistus, its flame is a fire more burning than the flame of impiety. What wild beast bites the body so that impiety tears the soul? Do you not see how many evils oppress the impious soul? Alas, thus cries out the soul itself. I am burned, I am consumed. I know not what to do. Miserable me, evils devour me from all sides. I see nothing. Alas, miserable, I hear nothing. Such are the afflicted cries of souls. Such is the fitting punishment of that nature, not as you might think. Sons and some others think, who seem to believe that our soul, after it has shed its human form, degenerates into the bodies of brutes. For this is indeed an impious error, but another mode of its chastisement. The mind indeed, when it becomes a demon, is ordered to seize a fiery body for the service of God, then transfused into a nefarious soul. It lashes the cause of sins with scourges. These scourged wicked ones turn to slaughter, lust, abuse, and various plunderings. Finally, to those things through which they harmed humans, everything collapses. But when the just mind flows into the soul, it raises it to the light of wisdom. This soul then never languishes in the torpor of sleep, but with words equally, and with human deeds it brings help to mankind, and assists in all ways, imitating its own parent. For this reason, O sons, it behooves us to give thanks to God, to pray, that we may become partakers of a good mind, if indeed the soul migrates for the better, never for the worse. There is also a certain communion of souls of the gods. Souls communicate with the souls of men. God shows himself common to each, for he is superior to all. But all things are weaker than him. The world is subject to God, man to the world, the brute to man. God is above all and around all. The rays of God are actions. The rays of the world are nature. The rays of man are arts and sciences. Through the world action is exercised, and through the rays of the world they descend into man by natural means. Through nature by the elements, men through arts and sciences. These are certainly the things of the whole world. Administration depends on the nature of the one rightly running through one matter, than which nothing is stronger, nothing more divine, nothing more united. The communion of men to gods, of men and gods. This is good. The demon, the soul, which is full of this, is blessed. Mine truly is empty. Trismegistus. In what way do you say this, O Father? Trismegistus, no, my son, because the soul has the good itself as its mind. For this indeed is our present discourse, not of the servant of this, whom we mentioned above, sent to the inferiors by judgment. The soul, deprived of the presence of the mind, can neither do anything nor say anything. But often the mind is outside the soul, at which time the soul neither hears nor sees, but is like an animal lacking reason. Such is the power of the mind, which deserts the soul of this kind, entangled in the body, and drawn by the same to the lower regions. Such a soul, my son, has no mind. And therefore it is not fitting to call this one a human. Man indeed is a divine animal, and is not to be compared with earthly brutes, but with the heavenly gods. Rather, if it is to be boldly stated and truly confessed, the true man is either superior to the heavenly beings, or at least equal in rank. For indeed whoever descends from the heavens to the earth forsakes the boundary of heaven. But man ascends to heaven and measures it, nor does he shun what is low, nor what is sublime. And he carefully investigates all other things, which indeed is greater than the earth that does not leave off elevating heaven. So great is the power of human nature. Therefore, it must be said, truly the earthly man is a mortal god, but the heavenly God is an immortal man. Therefore, in these two virtues, that of man and that of the world, everything is governed. Ultimately, all are subject to one, mind to Mercury. Stop speaking so long, O Trismegistus Mercury. Be silent. Recall what was said before, for I will not hesitate to express my thought to you. And more so, because many and varied opinions of mortals about the world and God wander. Trismegistus, indeed, to confess the truth of this matter honestly, I do not yet grasp it myself. Therefore, my Lord, I express the pure truth, for I trust that you alone can elucidate such things. Mind. Listen to me then, son. Time, God, and the universe are as follows. God is eternity. Time is generation. God is eternity. Eternity is the world. The world is time. Time brings about generation. The essence of God is goodness, beauty, happiness, wisdom, eternity. Essence, the very same, the order of the world. The transmutation of time, the death and life of generation, the act of God's mind and soul. Eternity, perseverance, and immortality, the institution and restoration of the world, the increase and decrease of time. Finally, the quality of generation. Therefore, eternity is in God, the world and eternity, time and the world. In time is generation. Eternity exists around God. The world is in eternity moves. Time is terminated in the world. Generation is encompassed in time. Therefore, the fate of all is God, but the essence is eternity. The work of eternity is the world, made indeed not at some point in time, but made always from eternity. And since eternity never ceases, the world will never cease. And since it is encompassed by the eternity of the world, no part of the world will perish. Trismegistus, but what is the wisdom of God? Mind, goodness, beauty, happiness, every virtue and eternity, whence eternity grants immortality, passing on the perseverance of matter. For the origin of matter depends on eternity, just as eternity depends on God. Generation and time are twins by nature, and they are in heaven and on earth. In heaven they are certainly immutable, these two in the immortals. On earth are mutable and subject to corruption. The soul of eternity is God. The soul of the world is eternity. The soul of the earth is heaven. God and the mind and the soul, but the soul and matter. Truly all these things through eternity, this whole body, in which all bodies are filled with soul, mind, and God. It encompasses the outermost parts of the world. It suggests life to all. Externally, indeed, to this perfect animal of the world, but internally to the rest that are in the living world, and above in heaven, which is the same. All things situated below indeed on earth, stirring generation. Indeed, the world coheres with eternity, whether through necessity or prudence or nature. And if anyone could think or even will ever think of anything else, God does it. Action. The power of the God is insuperable, with which neither human nor any divine power can be compared. Beware therefore, O Mercury, not to deem anything of the infernal or even the superior as similar to the God. For you would completely err from virtue, for nothing is indeed similar. That which is dissimilar is sole and unique. Nor should you consider these things, which have force over God. For what indeed after him is such, and to immortality, and to the transformation of quality, and what else beyond this would God achieve? For God is not idle, for everything would be idle. For indeed all things are full of God. Idleness is found in no part of the world. Idleness is vain. Then, according to what it does, and even according to what is done, it is necessary for all things to happen, and always to happen according to the nature of each place. An agent does not preside over one only, but over all, and not one only, but truly produces all. For power existing in itself is effective. In those things that are made, it is not in the least sufficient. For under it indeed are the works begotten by it. Come, contemplate, for me the world subject to your gaze, and diligently examine its form. An inviolable body, than which nothing older through all is alike mature and green. Moreover, inspect the 7 assumed worlds, adorned with wonderful ornament, in a septenary order, in their course differently embracing the ages, each full of light, but in them in no way fire. For indeed friendship is a mixture of contraries and dissimilars, instituted by light illuminated by the act of the God, and the goodness of the Father of all, the Prince of the entire order, and leader of the 7 eternal worlds, and the moon indeed preceding the others, the organ of nature, transmuting the inferior matter. The earth situated in the middle of the world, the substellar nourishment of the beautiful world, and the same nurse of all earthly things. Meditate on the number of mortals and of the immortal living beings. The medium indeed as a boundary of both, namely of mortals and immortals, the moon itself circulating. The soul again full of all things, moved by its own motions, partly indeed around the heavens, partly indeed around the earth, neither those things which are on the right to the left, nor the left to the right. Likewise, neither the above to the below, nor the below again to the above. But that all these things have been accomplished, O my sweetest Mercury, nor is there need now, that you should learn from my discussion. For bodies are, and hence the soul, and it is moved. But these to come together into one without the virtue of the one gathering them is impossible. Therefore it is necessary that something be such and holy one. For since there are many, various are the motions, and dissimilar bodies, but one order of speed in all, it is impossible that there be 2 or more agents, nor indeed would one order be approved if by many. Moreover, he who would travel among them would be more capable, seeing them more powerful, and from which some sedition would arise. And so if one of them had been the author of mutable animals, he would also desire to beget immortals, as the father of immortals strives in mortals. Indeed, even with a single soul, and a single matter to which their most important construction pertains. For if to either to which a greater responsibility would lie, consider this. Without a body you live or die, whether in mortal or immortal, it consists of matter and soul. Indeed, all living bodies are animated, but non-living bodies are almost bare in everything. The soul likewise, similarly, according to itself close to its parent, is the cause of life. However, the cause of life is each of the immortals. In what way then? Do mortal living things differ from mortals, and likewise from immortals? Immortal things. So indeed the author of all these is preeminent among others? For there is one soul, one life, and one matter. Who is this, or who else besides the one God? Does it belong to anyone else than to God alone to grant life? Thus, one God has been acknowledged for the one world, and one sun, one moon, one divinity as well. But how many gods do we believe there to be? Thus one will make each in many. Is it really a difficult and laborious for God to make life, soul, immortality, and change? For you can do so many things. You see, you hear, you smell, you taste, you touch, you speak, you walk, you breathe, you understand. Nor is there another in you who sees, or another who hears. Nor does one speak, another walk, one smells, another tastes, one breathes, another understands. But one performs all these things, nor is it possible for these to occur without the matter of God. For just as one who ceases from these things is no longer an animal, so is he who ceases from the construction of these things, he would not be God at all. But to suspect that is impious. For if it were conceded that nothing in the nature of things could exist, which does not have a certain natural vigor for action, and likewise the execution of a certain work, how much more must it be affirmed that God does not lack the power and effect of all things? For whatever is idle, imperfect, it is impious to call God imperfect. Therefore God makes all things. Now to me, for a little while, O Mercury, be wholly present. Devote yourself to me. You will immediately understand the work of God. This work was necessary to be present, that there might be those things which are made, those which were made, and those which will be made in the future. That, however, O my most sweet Mercury, is life. That indeed is beautiful. That, moreover, is good. That finally is God. But if you ask to place these things before your eyes through examples of works, consider what happens to you desiring to create. Not, however, this similar to that, for he indeed is not diffused with pleasure. He does not have an assistant in the work. Effective by his own nature, working by his own property, he is engaged in the work always, existing himself, whatever one has done. If he should withdraw his flow with life failing, in death all things will collapse. But since all things live, and life is the life of all, God is one. Again, if all things are living, both those seen in heaven and those lying on earth, one life of all flows from God. And he himself is God. From one all things are made by the Creator. But life is the vision of mind and soul, or death is not a separation of things created together, but a dissolution of the greatest union, the image. Therefore, the age of the God, the measure of the ages, the son of the world, the son of the son is man. But indeed by certain change, people consider death to be, for the reason that the mass of the body dissolves, life withdraws into concealment. Indeed, O beloved Mercury, I teach you that the world indeed changes in this way, because certain parts of it constantly go into concealment, yet never believe that they perish. These are indeed the passions of the world, namely revolution and concealment. Revolution is indeed conversion, or concealment is renewal. Moreover, the world of all forms does not readily accept forms and receives foreign ones, but it coalesces them from itself. It will also be similar to the omniform world, as if it has one form. In this it will be inferior to the world. What then shall we say to these things? Let us not, I pray, resist in ambiguity, for what in the divine is ambiguous not yet known, thus hold one idea. But its proper idea, when it escapes the sight of the eyes, is incorporeal, and expresses forms through individual bodies. And let no admiration completely hold you, because there is a certain incorporeal idea. For it is like the idea of speech and the letters in writings. They seem not to exceed much, yet they are plain by nature, and light. But meditate on what will now be said more boldly, and what is more truly asserted, how neither man can live without vivified life, nor can God live, unless he produces good. For this indeed is the life of God. This is his act to animate all things, and inspires life to all things. But certain things of them, what we have said above, requires a certain kind of understanding. Consider in this example what I most wish to signify. All things are therefore not as though placed in a location. For location is a body, immobile, and those things which are placed are without movement. Indeed, it is located differently in the body, differently in the imagination. Consider the container. Consider that there is nothing which is of an incorporeal nature more capacious, nothing swifter, nothing stronger, and it is the most capacious of all, the swiftest, the most powerful. Thus again, beginning from yourself, meditate and urge your soul, which will swiftly fly out wherever you direct. Bid it, therefore, to traverse the ocean. It will be there first wherever you have ordered it, from where it now is, by no means descending. Bid it again to fly into the heavens, needing nothing at all. Nothing will obstruct its course, not the sun's fire, not the expanse of the ether, not the vertigo of the heavens, not the bodies of the stars and other things, but penetrating all, it will reach up to the supreme body. Moreover, if you wish to traverse all the globes of the heavens and investigate whatever is above, that too will be allowed to you. Consider how great the power of your soul is, how great its speed. Can you do these things? God cannot. Therefore contemplate God in this manner, that in himself he understands, holds all ideas, and holds himself as the entire universe. Unless you make yourself equal to God, You will never understand God, for the like is always known by its like. Extend yourself in, magnitude without limit. Emerge from the body, surpass all time, be eternity. Thus you will finally know God. Consider nothing impossible within yourself. Think of yourself as immortal, capable of comprehending all things, all knowledge, and all art alike. Be of every loftiness loftier, of every depth deeper, and gather within yourself each of your senses and deeds, of fire, water, dry, and wet. Be present simultaneously in all parts of the world, the sky, on earth, and in the sea, throughout all time, inhabiting from the womb of your body. Think that nothing perishes with death. Comprehend all these things together, places, times, masses, qualities, and thus you will be able to understand divine qualities. On the other hand, if you sink your soul into the body and cast it away and drag yourself into the mud with your words, I neither know anything, nor am I even able to know. I shudder at the vast depth of the sea. I am unable to fly to the sky. I do not know what I am now. I do not know what I shall be in the future. What have you to do with God? For you cannot, since you are evil, and the fetid servant of the body, unable to grasp its beauty and goodness. But extreme depravity is not recognizing God, but indeed to consider and hope to find goodness at some point, because it is somewhat divine, leading to good by a straight path, easy and accessible. It will always proceed everywhere for you. It will meet you walking, sailing by day and by night speaking, as well as being silent. For there is nothing in the nature of things that does not in some way bear the image of divinity. Trismegistus, is not God invisible? Mind. Speak more religiously, Trismegistus. For who is brighter than he? Indeed, he understands all things. For this reason he created, so that you may discern him in all things. This is the goodness of God. This is his virtue. For him to shine through all things, there is nothing even invisible to the incorporeal. The mind itself perceives. God is seen in prayer. These things have thus far been disclosed to you, Trismegistus. The rest you will now investigate yourself, and not be deceived by any false image of truth. Mercury to Trismegistus on the common being indeed, O Trismegistus, from the essence of God. If there is any essence of him, it is born. Whatever this may be, it alone comprehends itself sincerely in that way. Therefore, the mind is in no way divided from the essence of God, but is rather connected to it in the way the light is to the body of the sun. This mind is God in men, and therefore some among men are gods, and their humanity is as close to divinity as possible. For indeed the good man declares the gods to be immortal. These both gods and men either mortal. Gods. In irrational animals, however, that mind is the nature. For wherever there is a soul, there also is the mind. Just as wherever there is life, there also is the soul in living beings, without any rejection. Discourse. The soul is life devoid of mind. The mind indeed is the guide of human souls, calling them back to their proper good. In animals lacking reason, each one operates according to its own nature. In human souls, it sometimes resists and fights back. The soul indeed infused into the body, from pleasure and pain. Continuously depraved, from the body's mixture of pleasure and pain. Rivulets of the senses announce it, in which the moistened soul is suffocated. To whichever souls the mind presides, those illuminated by its splendor guide both good and resist the bad. How then does a physician serve himself? He afflicts the sick body with pains, burns it, but cuts it for the sake of recovering health. In the same way, the mind afflicts the pleasure-loving soul to root out the root of pleasure. From this in every healthy person the disease, the gravest disease of the soul, is impiety. A belief that is not inclined towards good but is rather drawn to evil. But the mind opposing it thus procures the soul's good, as a physician does the body's health. Of whichever humans the souls are by no means governed by the mind. They are ruled by the same governor that governs the souls of brute animals. The mind releases them to the dominion of desires to which they are driven by a burning impulse. Thus, wild beasts become immoderate and wrathful, and they desire what is worse. They do not impose any restraint on lust, nor do they find any limit to their passions. These, like a shore, God as the avenger has set by law. Trismegistus. Here, O Father, that debate about fate, which we left incomplete in the previous sections, is revived. For if a certain decree about adultery Some are to be sacrilegious. Why are some punished for faith, when indeed compelled by the necessity of fate to offend? Trismegistus. All things are the works of my Son. Without him, nothing is corporeal, no good. Without him, nothing can be done. No evil can be done without him. It is decreed that he who has committed any disgraceful act should suffer for it. He commits it for that reason, so that he is punished in the same way as whatever he has committed. But concerning fate and the punishments of the wicked, we have spoken in other places. The present discussion, however, is about the mind. What is the power of the mind, and how it differs in humans and animals? Is its instinct, and again how in animals indeed the mind itself is not beneficial. In humans, however, it restrains the impulse of lust, quenches the ardor of anger. From this, it follows that among humans, some are irrational, some rational. But all humans are subject to fate, generation, transformation. The beginning, indeed, the end of fate are these two, namely generation and transformation. And all humans indeed suffer that which fate has ordained. But those rational ones, in whom we have said the mind acts as a governor, do not suffer in the same way as others. Rather, being alien to wickedness and not evil, they suffer the least evil. Trismegistus. How do you say these things again, O Father? Trismegistus. Is not the adulterer evil? Is not the murderer evil? A man does not suffer as an adulterer, but as an adulterer. Not as a murderer, but as a murderer. It is impossible to escape the quality of transformation, as it is impossible to escape the effect of generation. But it is permitted to avoid wickedness while having the mind, and wherefore, my son, I have always heard a good spirit dictating, who, if he had committed to letters all the monuments, would confer wondrous benefits on the human race daily. That one alone, my son, as if he were born for me a god, observing all things, has poured forth divine oracles upon us. I once heard him preaching the same. All things are one. Especially intelligible bodies, we live by power, by act, by eternity. The mind of this one is good, just as his soul is good, to whom this is so. There is nothing of the intelligible distant from the intelligible. Furthermore, the mind, the chief of the mouth, and the soul of God, whatever it wishes to accomplish. This you therefore consider these things. And to this one whom I introduce in a discourse on fate, stand with mind and ears attentive. If you diligently avoid religious snares, you will find without a doubt that the mind, the soul of God, rules over all, since even to the law, and to all things universal. Nothing of those things which pertain to fate is impossible for the mind. And therefore the human soul is superior to fate, yet still it neglects those things which are subject to fate. And these are the best oracles of the good spirit. Trismegistus, truly divine, and also conveniently you have treated these things, O Father. But this besides you will declare to me, I beg. You said the mind in brute animals operates in the manner of nature, cooperating with their affections. But the affections of the irrational ones, as I suppose, are passions. Therefore the mind is a kind of passion, for thus it is conformed to the passions. Trismegistus, well done, good son, who generously asks. It is right, that to these. I respond, all things that are in bodies and corpora are passible. Indeed, passions are their own all bodily motion. Incorporeal things also are moved by the mind. Motion, however, is a passion. Therefore both that which is moved and also that which moves, suffer this indeed dominates, that truly is subject. But when it is separated from the body, it is freed from passions. Indeed, nothing anywhere becomes impassible. Everything is passable. But passion and the passible differ in this greatly, that one suffers from the other. Bodies, however, according to themselves also act. Either they are immobile or they move. But truly this is a passion. In corporeal things, however, they always operate, and therefore they are passible. Nor should the names move you. Operation and passion are the same, but using the more honorable term does no harm. Tatius, you have explained these matters clearly, O Father. Trismegistus, moreover, consider this, O son, that these two alone out of all gifts to man have been granted by God himself, namely speech and mind, which indeed are considered to be of the same reward as immortality. Whoever uses them for that which is fitting differs in nothing from the immortals. Indeed, even being freed from the shackles of the body, by both will be led into the company of the blessed and the gods. Titius other animals besides man, do they not use speech? Trismegistus, no, son, but voice. There is a great difference between voice and speech. Speech is common to all humans, but voice is proper to each individual man, and also proper to each kind of animal. Trismegistus, O father, diverse are the kinds of men. Do they use diverse discourses? Trismegistus. Diverse, O son, is also the discourse, which by interpretation is brought here and there. One, and indeed the same word exists and is repeated. The same word among the Egyptians, Persians, and Greeks. But you see, my son, the virtue of the word, and ignore its amplitude. Blessed God, good demon, the soul being in the body, the mind in the soul. The word is pronounced in the mind, but God holds the father of these. The word, therefore, is the image and mind of God. It is the body of the idea. The idea is the soul. The purest portion of matter is the air. The air is the soul. The soul is the mind. Finally, the mind is God. But God is around all things, simultaneously and through all things. The mind is around the soul around the air around matter. But necessity, providence, and nature are the organs of the world and the order of matter. For indeed, the essence of each of the intelligible, but the essence of those is the same. But of those bodies that are in the world, each one is multitude. Composite bodies having the same nature and flowing into each other preserve the immortality of its very self perpetually. In other bodies, which are composed, the measure of each body is number. Without number, constitution or composition or dissolution is possible. For indeed they generate an increase in number. Again, having been dissolved, they return to themselves. But matter is one, the world is one, great is God, the image of the greater, one. To him who keeps the order and will of the Father, there is the fullness of an integral life. Nor is there anything in it that pertains to eternity, a paternal restoration, whether it looks at the whole or at a part that life enjoys. Nor is there one in the world who lacks life, neither before it was nor now. While the Father lived, he willed it so. As long as he lives, the world must necessarily exist, and God must exist. How then can the sons in God, in the image of the whole, in the fullness of life, be in any way lacking life? The deprivation of life is corruption. Corruption is indeed an affliction. Therefore, how can any part of that which is incorruptible be corrupted, or anything of God be destroyed? Trismegistus. Father, do not the animals that are in the world, the parts of the world, perish? Trismegistus. You speak more correctly, my son. You err in name. Nothing in the world dies, but composite bodies are dissolved. Dissolution is not death. It is the resolution of a mixture. But the union is dissolved, not so that the things that are dissolved, but so that the old things become young again. Trismegistus. Since there is a certain operation of life, is this not some kind of motion? And therefore, why is there anything immobile in the world? Trismegistus. Nothing, my son. Trismegistus. Does the earth seem immobile to you? Trismegistus. Not at all. It is moved by many motions, but this alone is somewhat stable. Would it not be ridiculous for it to conceive and bear offspring without motion? For it is impossible for anything to be born without motion, nor less ridiculous to call such a body sterile. Nothing else does the term immobile of itself mean except sterile. All this, my son, generated matter, which is in the world, either grows or decreases and is moved. But what is moved also lives. However, individual living things are not necessarily the same. For while the whole world exists as a whole immobile, its parts, however, are movable in every direction, yet nothing is subject to corruption, but some false appellations disturb people. Nor indeed is the generation of life creation, but rather the explanation of latent life. Nor is change death. Rather, it is more like concealment. Since these things are so, all things are immortal. The substance of life is indeed the spirit. The mind is of the soul. From the mind comes life itself. Therefore, everything living is through the mind, permanent and immortal. But the greatest of all immortal beings is man, who comprehends God, who is conformed to the divine essence. To this one alone, out of all kinds of living beings, God himself associates. At night through dreams, by day more frequently through portents, and through all things foretells future events to him, through birds, through entrails, through the spirit, and through the sibyl. Therefore, it is rightly said that man knows the things that are, that have been, and that are soon to come. But this, first of all, I wish you to consider, my son, that each kind of living being inhabits its own appropriate region of the world. The moist ones indeed in water, the terrestrial on the earth, the aerial in the air. But man uses all of these: earth, water, air, and fire. He looks up at the sky and perceives it with his senses. But God encompasses all things at once, through all things. For the act is of all things, and power, since it is a difficult thing, my son, to perceive God. Therefore, whenever you wish to observe, consider the order of the world and the adornment of its order. Consider the necessity of those things that are perceived by the senses, and the providence of all things, what has been done before, and what happens daily. Consider the full substance of life, such and so great a God with all good things, and with beautiful gods, demons, and men advancing. Trismegistus, but these, O Father, are certain operations. Trismegistus. Ah, my son, from whence are these, unless they proceed from God himself? Do you not know that just as many parts are heaven, water, earth, and air, in the same way they are the members of God? Life, immortality, necessity, providence, nature, soul, mind, and the perception of all these things, the very good. Nor is anything done, nor is there anything made where God himself is not present. Trismegistus. Therefore, in matter, Father, Trismegistus. Matter, my son, is separate from God. That place might be assigned properly. What else do you think of it? A rude, undigested mass. Do not believe this can exist unless it is formed. And if it is formed, it is certainly formed by someone. We have said that the operations of forming are parts of God. Therefore, from whom is life given? To living beings individually. From whom are they immortal, who enjoy the gift of immortality? From whom are they changed, those things which are changeable, whether you call them matter or body? Remember that they are acts of God. And the act of matter, the nature of matter, the act of the body, the nature of bodies, the act of essence, the nature of essence, and all that. Nor is there anything in all that is not itself of God. Therefore, neither magnitude nor place, nor quality nor figure, nor even time around God. For everything is, but everything around everything, and through all things. My son, cultivate and adore this word. But the worship of God is one thing, not to be evil. Mercury to his son about generation and the imposition of silence. In common discourses, Father, through certain enigmas, and without the declaration of any explanation, you have treated concerning divinity, asserting that no one is saved before regeneration. Indeed, while you were ascending the mountain, I stood by you supplicating that you should explain to me the reason for regeneration, for that alone remained for me to learn then. Then at last you promised that you would reveal it when I was alienated from the world. Behold, I am now prepared, Father. I have cast off the deceptions of the world from me. Therefore, keep your promises, the manner of regeneration, either openly or secretly, as it pleases to teach. I do not know, O Trismegistus, from what matter or what seed man was born. Trismegistus, O son, contemplate in silence the wisdom, the seed of the good. Trismegistus, since, Father, I do not know this. Trismegistus, by your will, my son. Trismegistus. And how great is he who is not begotten, for he lacks intelligible essence. For if it were otherwise, he who is begotten will be the Son of God. Trismegistus. Everything and everything, consistent with all powers. Trismegistus. You create enigmas, Father, nor do you speak in a fatherly manner with your son. Trismegistus. This kind, my son, is not taught. As often as it wishes, the word is brought back to the memory of God by a certain insinuation. Trismegistus. You bring forth impossibilities, and things too violent. Therefore I wish to contradict them. Trismegistus. You differ greatly from your father's nature. Trismegistus. Trismegistus. Do not envy me, Father. I am a legitimate son. Please, teach me the manner of regeneration. Trismegistus. What shall I say, son? What I shall say. Besides this, I have nothing to say. I see a true spectacle, offered to me by the goodness of God. Whence I have been translated into an immortal body, not the one I was before. And now having been made, this mystery is not taught. See this element formed, through which it is allowed to see, through which the first composite form has been neglected by me. I am not colored or have touch and limit. I am alienated from them. Trismegistus, you have driven me, Father, into madness and insane fury. I do not see myself in the present. Trismegistus, I wish, my dearest son, that you too would not pass over yourself while sleeping, like those who are occupied by a sleepless sleep. Trismegistus, tell me, who is the author of regeneration? Trismegistus, the Son of God, man by the will of the one God. Trismegistus, now you have rendered me mute and foolish, Father, I myself too, alienated from my former state of mind, and inhaling the magnitude of low things with the character of the same. And therein is falsehood. For the mortal form changes daily, turning this for a time as indeed false into increase and into decrease. What then is true, Trismegistus? Trismegistus, that which is not disturbed, determined, not colored, not shaped, not cut, nakedly clear, comprehensible by itself, immutable good, and entirely incorporeal. Trismegistus, I am truly insane now, Father. Though I hope to become wise through you, my senses have been dulled by such knowledge. Trismegistus, this happens, my son, for what is lifted up is like fire, and what is lowered is like earth, and humid like water, and also breathes like air. How will you perceive it with your senses? Not hard, not soft, not dense, not penetrable, only power. And to be considered, he who can should pray to understand the reason which is in God. Trismegistus, I am powerless, Father. Trismegistus, let this not be, my son. Return into yourself, and you will achieve it if you desire, and it will be. Purify the senses of the body. Free yourself from the irrational avengers of matter itself. Trismegistus, are the avengers within me? Trismegistus, not few, my son, but horrible and many. Trismegistus, I am ignorant, Father. Trismegistus, behold, my son. This one is the avenger, ignorance. The second is sadness. The third, inconstancy. The fourth, desire. The fifth, justice. The sixth, luxury, avarice. The seventh is deception. The eighth is judgments. The ninth is fraud. The 10th is wrath. The 11th is rashness. The 12th is indeed malice. These are indeed 12 in number. Under them are contained many others. These afflict a sad man enclosed by the prison of the body, but they are absent from the one who relies on the mercy of God. And thus the manner of regeneration is established, and the discourse. Hereafter be silent, my son, and praise God in silence, and in this way the divine mercy will never leave us. Rejoice then, my son, for by divine power you are elevated into the contemplation of truth. The knowledge of God descends into us. Approach this. Ignorance is repelled. The knowledge of joy descends into us. With this present, sadness completely flees. It turns towards those who are prepared to receive it. I call the power that leads to joy, constancy, of which any doubt is the most pleasant. Therefore, let us embrace it most willingly, my daughter, for when it first appears, it expels all softness. The fourth now I call continence, the strength of all desires conquering the universe. This step, my son, is the foundation of justice, but consider how it expels justice from all works. We indeed have become just, with justice absent, my son. The sixth I call power, descending to us, namely a defense against excess. Finally, let this depart. I call upon truth. Soon deception flees. Truth is present. See how the good is made complete with present. Envy indeed has departed from us. For truth is innately good, along with life and light. The judge has not gone further. But all the avengers have been repelled by a certain sudden force. You have understood, my son. The manner of the very regeneration, with the number 10 present, intellectual generation is composed, which rejects the number 12. And we have speculated this from the very generation. Therefore, whatever loses its bodily sense because of the kindness of generation, which is according to God, it knows itself to be composed of divine things, and having been made indivisible, it rejoices with the whole mind in divine power. Tatius. O Father, I conceive not by the sight of the eyes, but by the act of the mind, which is exercised through inner powers. I am in the sky, on the earth, in water, in the air. I am in animals, in trees, in the body, before the body, and after the body. But I would like you to tell me this besides, how do the avenging shadows, with the number 12, drive back power so strongly? What way, Trismegistus? Trismegistus, this is a mystery, my son, established from the zodiac circle, which consists of the number 12. And the numbers are 11, one omniform according to the ideas of nature, to the wandering of man, and to the circuits. Therefore, those avengers are somehow disjoined from each other, yet in acting they are somehow joined, as, behold, rashness is inseparable from wrath. Therefore, rightly, according to reason, there is an interval as far as the 10 powers repel them. 10, my son, is the parent of the soul. Life, however, and light where they are united, where the numbers of unity itself are, from spirit and nature, unity embraces according to the number of 10. And again, the 10 embraces unity. Trismegistus. Ah, Father, I see the universe and myself in the mind. Trismegistus. But this is regeneration, my son, not being further attached to the body, diminished by quantity. For this very reason, the mystery of regeneration is far off. Let us not be slanderers of the whole, against many, whom God himself wills. Trismegistus. Answer these things, O Father. This body constituted from power, will it ever dissolve? Trismegistus, beware of daring this further. You speak impossibilities, and you err completely, deluding yourself with the eyes of the mind in excessive impiety. The sensible body of nature, it differs greatly from the essential generation. One indeed is dissoluble, the other indissoluble. The former is mortal, the latter is immortal. Or do you not know that you are both God and one born of God? Trismegistus. Oh, how I would like, Father, that analogy from the hymn, which you said you heard from the powers that you yourself are in the eighth. Trismegistus. The eighth, my son, was sung by Pymander himself. Therefore it is fitting for you to break free from the shadow. For that Pymander, pure mind of divine power, revealed no more to me than what is written, thinking that I would keep the rest. He urged me to honorable duties, from which all the forces in me harmonize. Trismegistus. O Father, I wish to hear and understand these things. Trismegistus, rest, my son, rest, I say. You will now hear the harmony, the song of regeneration, and the hymn. I would never so easily reveal this, unless I considered it necessary for you. This is not taught, but hidden in silence. See me, good son, observe everything diligently. For it is fitting that you also pray under the open sky when the sun sets to the south, and when it rises to the east face. Trismegistus. Let the entire nature of the world hear this hymn. Listen, earth. Listen, storms of winter. O woods, be silent. I will sing to the creator of all, of the whole, and the one. Hear, heavens, be still. The eternal circle of God may hear this reasoning. I now sing to the creator of all things, the distributor of lands, the balancer of the sky, ordering fresh water to flow from the ocean, for the nourishment of men, commanding fire to shine, the supreme guide of men and of gods. Let us all together give thanks, traversing the heavens and the nature of creation. Here my mind's eye is, here it willingly receives the blessing of powers. O my strengths, praise the one and only. Harmonize with my pleasure all powers of the soul, sacred knowledge, which shines with your light. Through you it sings the intelligible light. I rejoice with the joy of the mind. All powers sing with me. Constancy, sing with me. Let my justice sing through me. Let my communion praise the whole itself. Through me let truth sing. The truth, our good. Finally let it sing good. O life, O light, a blessing flows from us into us. I give thanks to you for the deeds of all powers. I thank you, God, for the power of all deeds. Through me, let your word praise you. Through me, the world receives the sacrifice by word. My strengths cry out. Let them all sing. They accomplish your will. Let your will be absent in everything. I accept the sacrifice of words from all. O life, save all that is in me. O light, illuminate everything. Spirit of God. Your word guides me, life-giving creator. You alone are God. Your human calls us out through fire, through air, through water, through earth, through spirit, through all created things. From eternity I have found blessing, with which I desire to rest in your will. Trismegistus, I have known this hymn from you, sung out of the affection of your will, from which I have touched my world. Trismegistus, speak of the intelligible world, my son. Trismegistus, I speak of the intelligible Father. Indeed, from your hymn my mind has been enlightened, so that I too burn with the love of singing. Trismegistus, O my son Trismegistus, do not sing divine praises without purpose. Trismegistus, I will sing from my mind, my Father. Trismegistus, what I observe I pour into you, the begetter of generation, my son Trismegistus. Trismegistus, I offer sacrifices of words to God. O God, you are the Father, you are the Lord, your mind. Accept the sacrifices of words. What you require of me, with your will, all things are accomplished. Trismegistus, offer, my son, a sacrifice pleasing to the Father God. Be intent on your prayer. Trismegistus, I thank you, Father, for wanting me to preach these things. Trismegistus, I rejoice, my son, that you learn from me many good things from truth, which are indeed immortal works, announcing the silence of virtue, sharing with none the mystery of regeneration, so that we are not considered as some kind of slanderers. For each of us has meditated sufficiently, I indeed by learning, you, however, by mastering, by which you have known yourself and the Father. Mercury's Epilogue to Asclepius. Since my son Trismegistus, with you absent, wanted to learn the nature of all things, he truly did not want to examine me. Being younger himself and recently coming to each one's knowledge, he was compelled to say many things, so that it might be easy and expedient for him in the pursuit. I thought it fitting to choose the best from many, to now summarize to you in discourse. Indeed, it is permitted to go over certain mysteries of nature with you. All things that are perceived by the senses, they are made, and they happen every day. Things are not born from themselves, but are made by another. Many things are born, evident to the senses individually, and differences are not entirely similar. Whatever is generated proceeds from another. Therefore, there is a maker of these things, and he is unbegotten by them, that he is older than those generated. Did I say generated? Flowing from another, but nothing can be older than the nature of the ungenerated. The Maker indeed is more powerful and unique, and he alone truly wise over all things, since nothing at all precedes him. He also rules over a multitude, in greatness of action, continuity, and the begetter of all differences. Moreover, the things generated are visible. He is invisible. For this reason, he makes the visible come to be. He always does. It is worthy to understand, to marvel at understanding, to call oneself blessed in marveling, recognizing the legitimate Father. For what is sweeter than a legitimate parent? Who is he? How shall we find him? Is it fitting to attribute to him alone the appellation of God, or of the Creator, or of the Father, or are these three names together? Therefore, let him be called God, because of power. The Creator, because of the act. The Father, finally, because of goodness. For power is very different from the begotten, and act from the production of all things. Therefore, dismissing the variety and vanity of speech, these two things must be meditated upon primarily. The begetter and the begotten, and there is nothing between them, nor anything else besides this. Therefore, when you wish to understand all things, remember these two, and know that they are the universe. And nothing will be ambiguous to you, neither mortal, nor divine, nor changeable, nor permanent, nor of those who hide in the shadows. For indeed there are two things, the begetter and the begotten. Neither can be separated from the other, nor indeed can the Creator exist without the created. Both of these exist together. Therefore, neither can be separated from the other, just as neither can be divided from itself. For if the Maker himself, nothing besides him, and what he makes is other, it is simple, as it always is. Thus it always acts, and the same to itself, both in existence and in action. But nothing that is begotten by itself, nor therefore separate from the Maker. Who of these one he subtracts, leads, and alters? One indeed, by its own nature, always regards the nature of the other. If, therefore, two have begun, affecting, and the affected, which are united to each other, yet in such a way that one precedes, the other indeed follows. Certainly the preceding God is the efficient cause. The following is that which is the effect. Whatever it is, let no one doubt what I have said, terrified by the variety of the matter, which construction is so different, whether it be arduous or unworthy, by divine majesty. For there is one glory to God, the constitution of all things, and that is, just as the body of the Creator. From the very Maker, nothing evil, nothing shameful. For these are indeed passions, following the created works, just as rust to bronze, living bodies, mud. But neither does the smith bring in rust, nor the Creator the animated body, filth and dirt, in the same way, nor is God evil. Generation or perseverance thinks evil creeps in, and for that reason, God instituted change in things, and as a certain purification of generation itself. Furthermore, it is permitted to the same painter to shape both heaven, earth, sea, gods, men, animals, trees, and lifeless things. But to God alone, there is no ability to do such things. O madman, O blind one, and entirely unskilled in divine knowledge. There is nothing more ridiculous, O Asclepius, than what happens to this one. For to have said that God is worshipped admits that by neglecting business and care, he first ignores God himself and what is worse, the passions of mortals, attributes, envy, pride, ignorance, imbecility. Unless he does everything, he is either proud or rather weak, both of which are wicked. For God has a unique and proper nature, and that itself is good. However, the good is neither proud nor weak. The good itself is God. Indeed, the good is the very power of all actions. Whatever is begotten by God is begotten. That is from the good, and from him who can do all things. See how he indeed does, how they also happen. If you wish to understand, it is possible to comprehend a great and beautiful reason, and very similar in insight. Look, I pray, at the farmer, a woman spreading seeds into the earth's bosom. Here wheat, barley elsewhere, and elsewhere seeds of other kinds. Look at the same pruning vines and figs and trimming them. In the same way, God himself plants immortality in heaven, but on earth change, and finally in the whole world life and motion. These, however, are not many, but few, and determined by a certain number. For all things are for, and God and generation, by which all things are comprehended. This is the end of the most elegant work of Mercury Trismegistus,